Y'all, I manifested this. Hello, my fam. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source still for everything It Ends With Us saga. Just a few days ago, I was complaining that the ruler of redactions and Justin Baldoni had been rather quiet. Then, Sanction Gate, and now, 3 big updates in one video. Let's get right to it. When last we checked in, Bleak Lively was seeking sanctions against Justin Baldoni's producing partner, Jamie Heath. And not only that, she wanted to muzzle him. Self-defaming Serena was demanding that Jamie Heath turn over the entire birthing video that he showed her a snippet of on the set of It Ends With Us. That is not debatable. It happened. She said it, and so did Baldoni and crew. They confirmed that Jamie Heath showed her a little bit of his wife giving birth, per his own instructions. Justin apparently wanted to show Blake what he envisioned for the birthing scene in It Ends With Us. But the mistress of misrepresentation made it seem like it was, something tawdry. And in addition to requesting sanctions and that the Wayfarer defendants hand over every single clip of the birthing video, Suella No Chill also wanted the judge, her bestie, to prevent Jamie Heath from providing any testimony or evidence about the interaction with the birthing scene on the set of the movie. So, in our first big update, Baldoni and crew have responded to that. Kevin Fritz takes the lead and he says, Dear Judge Lyman, as counsel for Wayfarer Studios LLC, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz, It Ends With Us Movie LLC, Melissa Nathan, the agency group PR LLC, and Jennifer Abel, collectively the Wayfarer parties, and pursuant to Rule 1D of Your Honor's individual rules and practices, the Wayfarer parties respectfully request an extension of time to and including November 6, 2025, in which to respond to Blake Lively's motion for sanction concerning a video of Jamie Heath's wife shortly after the birth of their child. The motion. Given that Miss Lively improperly filed the motion as a letter motion, the current date for opposition to the motion is November 3rd, 2025, in accordance with Rule 4C of Your Honor's rules. Although we requested Miss Lively consent to the extension sought herein, she refused without explanation. The motion seeks unwarranted and draconian relief in order 1, compelling Mr. Heath to produce all video footage depicting the birth of his child, parentheses, which was never previously requested or ordered to be produced, and 2, precluding Mr. Heath from testifying about the nature of the image shown to Miss Lively and the circumstances relating to showing the image, which is disputed. Pause. I said this could be a big deal because obviously there were witnesses who observed this all go down who could testify about how the shampoo company owner responded and if Blackface Betty seemed offended or disgusted or upset or not. Fritzy continues, the preclusion of evidence for failure to respond to a discovery request is a drastic remedy. That was a quote from case law. He continues, indeed, precluding certain evidence, such as Mr. Heath's testimony about the image at issue, can be deemed, you know what? This is the second time now he said image instead of video. Did anybody else catch that? Interesting. Indeed, precluding certain evidence such as Mr. Heath's testimony about the image at issue can be deemed dispositive of his defense. Therefore, the motion should not have been filed as a letter motion merely pertaining to discovery, but as a regular motion or notice. Had Miss Lively followed the proper procedure, then pursuant to Local Civil Rule 6.1a, the Wayfarer parties would have had 7 days to respond thereto. In all events, the Wayfarer parties should be accorded more than 2 business days to address the serious allegations contained in and the disturbing and drastic relief sought by the motion. The parties' next scheduled appearance before the court is December 9th, 2025. Well, her lapdog, Lyman, the judge, was busy this weekend, and he went ahead already and granted Wayfarer's request to respond to her ridiculous motion. One more time, just for effect. That was update number 1. Well, that was actually 1.5. That was almost 2. You might be getting 4 updates in this video. All right, next big update, Sanction Gate continues. The A-list actress, in her own mind, and her lawyers were also busy over the weekend, requesting sanctions yet again, this time against Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer defendants' crisis communications expert, Melissa Nathan. What did she do? Let's get to it. Unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, ethically challenged Ezra did not write this. Instead, Mikey Mike Gottlieb took the lead. He says, quote, "Dear Judge Lyman, Miss Lively respectfully moves the court to sanction defendant Melissa Nathan pursuant to Rule 37 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure for failure to comply with the court's August 27th, 2025 order compelling the correction and production of certain materials, including but not limited to documents bearing improper redactions." Oh, the irony. She knows a thing or two about redactions and misusing them. In her document production subject to the order, Miss Nathan produced documents bearing revised text box redactions. This is all so stupid. And I love it. I still can't get enough of it. Thank you. Thank you. She's the one keeping it going. Thank you. In her... I'm in a mood today. In her document production... I don't know why I'm finding this so funny. In her document productions, subject to the order, Miss Nathan produced documents bearing revised text box redactions, which exposed over 35 documents bearing impermissibly broad, non-responsive redactions. The challenged documents. There's a footnote. Footnote number 1 says, Miss Nathan produced certain documents in response to Miss Lively's omnibus motion to compel, but before the order, as previewed in the opposition to Miss Lively's motion to compel, filed by Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Steve Sarowitz, Wayfarer Studios, LLC, Miss Nathan, Jennifer Abel, and the agency group PRLLC, the Wayfarer defendants on August 11th, 2025. For purposes of this motion, Ms. Lively refers to those documents and others produced after the order as subject to the order. A compendium of the challenged documents subject to the order is affixed hereto as Exhibit A. They continue, Miss Nathan traded one deficiency for another, and in doing so failed to address her improper redactions as the court directed. The court should enter an order directing Miss Nathan to produce unredacted copies of the challenged documents and to reimburse Miss Lively for all reasonable attorney's fees and costs incurred by Miss Nathan's failure to comply with the order. Section 144A of the Joint Stipulation on the Protocol for Discovery of Electronically Stored Information and Hard Copy Documents outlines the circumstances under which a party in the above captioned action may apply redactions to produce documents. As set forth in Section 44A, where a document contains material that is not relevant per Federal Rule of Evidence 401 or includes a mix of responsive and non-responsive material, the producing party may redact the non-responsive material and produce the responsive content. The ESI stipulation further specifies how redactions should appear, instructing that any non-responsive redactions should make clear the reason for the redaction, using text box redactions, and that personally identifiable information shall be redacted with a black box. In the order, the court directed Miss Nathan to correct her improper redactions under the ESI stipulation, including by modifying redactions in prior productions to replace black box redactions with text box redactions, indicating the reason for the redaction. There's another footy note here. It says, the order also compelled the production of Miss Nathan's phone records and materials responsive to Miss Lively's requests for productions seeking inter alia, amongst other things. Remember that from my last video. Communications with media outlets, social media accounts, and concerning the digital campaign through February 18th, 2025. On August 14th, 2025, in advance of the order, but in response to the motion to compel, Ms. Nathan reproduced redactions with documents bearing new text box redactions. Still, 39 of the documents reproduced with NR redactions bear improperly overbroad redactions and therefore failed to comply with the ESI stipulation and order. Many documents Ms. Nathan produced in production volumes 6, 7, and 8 suffer from the same and other deficiencies. For instance, in some cases, it was apparent that Miss Nathan's NR redactions were overbroad because other parties or third parties produced unredacted versions of the same documents that revealed plainly relevant and responsive material obscured by Miss Nathan's redactions. Compare Exhibit I at 7, redacted, with Exhibit J, redacting the same text as NR. Compare Exhibit K at 4, redacted, with Exhibit L, redacting the same as NR. Compare Exhibit N at 6, redacted, with Exhibit N, redacting the same as NR. In other cases, Miss Nathan applied NR redaction so broadly that the underlying document was essentially unreadable, a reality Miss Nathan acknowledged herself during her depositions. Footnote: CEG Exhibit O at timestamp. Redacted. Paragraph at 383:5-11. Redacted. And in another footnote, the critically acclaimed Teen Choice Award winner's lawyer says, in addition to violating the order by virtue of bearing overbroad redactions, the challenged documents in Miss Nathan's production volumes 6, 7, and 8, produced August 23rd, 2025, September 8th, 2025, and September 12th, 2025, respectfully violate the court's mandate that Miss Nathan produce her phone records from May 1st, 2024 onward. See Exhibit C, phone records dated November 22nd, 2024 through December 21st, 2024, bearing NR redactions on all entries preceding December 19th, 2024, and 2, produce responsive documents post-dating December 20th, 2024 through February 18th, 2025, including, but not limited to, communications with media outlets. C, Exhibit D at 60, redacted attachment to redacted. E, redacted text messages with redacted. F, redacted text messages with redacted. G, redacted communications regarding the redacted. And H, redacted text messages with redacted. On September 24th, 2025, in advance of Miss Nathan's deposition, counsel for Miss Lively conferred with counsel for the Wayfarer defendants regarding Miss Nathan's improper NR redactions, among other deficiencies. Counsel for the Wayfarer defendants advised that they were not prepared to discuss Miss Nathan's redactions at the time of the parties' conferral. Having heard nothing from counsel for the Wayfarer defendants on October 16th, 2025, counsel for Miss Lively followed up to request confirmation that Miss Nathan would reproduce the flagged documents without NR redactions. Counsel for the Wayfarer defendants did not respond. Undersigned counsel attempted to confer once more on October 22nd, 2025. On October 23rd, 2025, counsel for the Wayfarer defendants summarily stated Miss Lively's contentions were untimely and advised that they would not revise their redactions. Footing note. On October 27th, 2025, counsel for Miss Lively requested confirmation from counsel for the Wayfarer defendants that Miss Nathan would reproduce an additional document bearing overly broad NR redactions in Miss Nathan's August 14th, 2025 reproduction. Counsel for the Wayfarer defendants has not responded. Therefore, the court should exercise its broad discretion to sanction Miss Nathan pursuant to Rule 37B2A for failing to address her improper redactions as required by the order. The discovery provisions of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure are designed to achieve disclosure of all the evidence relevant to the merits of a controversy, and when a party seeks to frustrate this design by disobeying discovery orders, thereby preventing disclosure of facts essential to an adjudication on the merits, severe sanctions are appropriate. Miss Nathan has sought to do just that, offering no explanation for her violation of the order and the ESI stipulation. She is confirmed to have redacted as NR material regarding the digital campaign, and she does not dispute that the same issues plague other material that exclusively she has produced and redacted as NR, not responsive. If Miss Nathan's non-compliance stands, she will have successfully deprived Miss Lively of relevant and responsive material necessary for Miss Lively to prosecute her claims and needlessly wasted this court's time and resources. The court should not reward Miss Nathan for her own misconduct. Accordingly, the court should order Miss Nathan to reproduce the challenged documents without redactions within a week of the court's order and reimburse Miss Lively for reasonable attorney's fees and expenses incurred by Miss Nathan's failure to comply with the order, including but not limited to those associated with the instant motion and correspondence regarding Miss Nathan's discovery deficiencies. Respectfully submitted, Michael Gottlieb. And yes, I fully expect the Wayfair defendants to request that the judge give them more time to respond to this as well. All right, that was update number 2. Now on to numero 3. We're heading over to the land of Jones now. The Wicked Witch of the East. Well, she's also on the East. The Wicked Witch of Jones Works. Justin Baldoni's publicist, Jen Abel, has just filed her answer and second amended counterclaim against his former publicist, Stephanie Jones. A lot of this is fairly boring stuff. Answering the allegations in paragraph blah, blah, blah. Answering the allegations in paragraph blah, blah, blah. Answering the allegations in paragraph blah, 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 blah. The counterclaims, however, are where things get juicy. This is long, so I'm just going to give you highlights, okay? The best bits. I'm glad I'm reading this, though, because this is hilarious. Long known within the public relations industry for her disarming Southern twang, brass knuckle tactics, and high turnover of clients and employees, Stephanie Jones has had a successful career in the entertainment industry. Her firm, Jones Works, has represented at various times The Rock, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, Venus Williams, Tom Brady, and Chris Hemsworth. Jones is married to Jason Hodes, a partner at William Morris Endeavor, Hollywood's most powerful talent agency. Between her perch atop Jones Works and his partnership at WME, Jones and Hodes are a bona fide Hollywood power couple. When Jones poached Jennifer Abel, Abel was an up-and-coming star publicist. I'm cutting out the filler part. At the time of her departure from her previous PR agency, Abel had worked there for nearly 12 years and held the title of vice president. In or around late spring 2020, at the height of you know what was going on then, Jones, through a recruiter, reached out to Abel via LinkedIn about joining Jones Works. Although Abel was content at her previous PR agency and not actively looking for a new job, Jones offered her a higher salary and, critically, the opportunity to lead her own team. When Abel announced her intention to join Jones Works, she was met with a parade of concern from across her professional network. An array of well-respected public relations professionals from across the entertainment industry reached out to Abel to caution her against working for Stephanie Jones. Jones, they warned, had a well-deserved reputation for treating people horribly. I am so glad we are getting into this. Jones had recently become embroiled in a dispute with another public relations firm for stealing its clients using deceptive and unscrupulous means. Excited by the new opportunity and not personally familiar with Jones or Jones' works, Abel decided to make the jump in spite of the admonitions from her peers. On or about July 9th, 2020, Abel was hired by Jones Works as vice president. Her mandate was to oversee Jones Works' talent department and grow its nascent Los Angeles office, which at the time only had 4 employees. In connection with and as a condition of her employment, Abel signed a non-disclosure and intellectual property rights and non-solicitation agreement. Abel was not represented by counsel in connection with the negotiation or execution of the 2020 employment agreement. Well, that's her bad. That's on her. I'm Team Truth. I tell it to you like it is, as I see it. Her employment agreement provided that Abel was an at-will employee whose employment was exclusive to Jones Works during the period of her employment. It also contained a confidentiality clause pursuant to which Abel was required to maintain the confidentiality of and not disclose confidential information as the term is expansively defined therein. Provisions purporting to restrict Abel's ability to speak truthfully about her experiences at Jones Works, and a host of restrictive covenants, including non-competition and non-solicitation covenants. The agreement also had a California choice of law provision. And within a few weeks of Abel's onboarding, Jones Works faced a mass exodus of employees in its New York office. While Abel was understandably concerned, Jones assured her that all the departing employees were horrible at their jobs and would be fired regardless. Little did Abel know that turnover of that magnitude was typical at Jones Works, which routinely faced large-scale departures by disgruntled and demoralized employees. What Abel quickly realized was that morale amongst Jones Works employees was outright abysmal, that such departures were invariably acrimonious, and that departing employees and current employees alike were extremely tight-lipped and fearful of discussing their experience at Jones Works. Abel observed that morale among Jones Works employees was correlated with physical proximity to Jones. Thus, the Los Angeles office was generally a more positive environment than the New York office. Abel was also surprised to learn that despite its size, Jones Works lacked any human resources department or dedicated human resources personnel. Jones instead relied on business affairs personnel and her various chiefs of staff to handle any personnel-related matters. In part, due to the lack of a human resources department or grievance reporting structure and fear of backlash from Jones Works had a toxic workplace culture in which employees lacking an outlet or meaningful recourse gossiped and complained amongst themselves and leaned on senior employees for solutions to workplace issues. Unlike most workplaces, JonesWorks also lacked written internal policies, including regarding the usage of electronic devices or an employee handbook. At no point during Abel's employment did she see, hear about, or sign anything of the sort. The only terms governing Abel's employment were those set forth in her employment agreements. Because public relations jobs require extensive mobile phone usage, public relations firms often assume the cost of their employees' phones and phone usage. JonesWorks was no exception. While Abel had an Android, Jones offered to switch her to a JonesWorks-issued iPhone, which required that she port her existing longtime phone number to the JonesWorks company phone plan. Abel had no problem with this so long as she could retain ownership of her phone number and bring it with her should she leave JonesWorks. Although JonesWorks owned the physical device, it was configured with Abel's personal Apple ID and populated with all of her personal email accounts, photos, text messages, third-party apps, etc. Abel had no concerns about using her JonesWorks-issued cell phone freely and as her sole mobile device, as such practices are common in her industry, where pay can be low, and neither Jones nor anyone else at JonesWorks advised her against doing so. JonesWorks did not have any internal policies that prohibited such use, gave it the right to monitor such use, or divested employees of a reasonable expectation of privacy in relation to such use. Thus, Abel had no reason whatsoever to believe that JonesWorks' ownership of the physical device would or could in any ways compromise her right to privacy in the personal data or accounts stored on or accessible from it. So far, it's sounding really good for Jen Abel, and Stephanie Jones is likely to lose. Or am I being naive? I don't know. Let's get back to this. JonesWorks would not have any right to access or monitor, for example, her personal email accounts, text messages, photos, or bank accounts. In addition, Abel separately paid for additional storage for her personal data. Notwithstanding the continued large-scale departures from the JonesWorks New York office, Abel quickly became a leader of the California operation. Within 2 years, Abel had grown the Los Angeles headcount from 4 employees to 12, and she wore an array of hats without any commensurate increase in compensation. On or about November 22nd, 2021, JonesWorks required Abel to enter into a modified employment agreement, changing her employment from at will to a contractual term, adjusting her title and compensation, and subjecting her to a variety of novel restrictions intended to deter her from leaving JonesWorks and inhibiting her ability to remain in her chosen field if she were to do so. Once again, Abel was not represented by counsel. Unlike the 2020 employment agreement, the new one contained a New York choice of law provision. At all times during Abel's employment at JonesWorks, Abel was a resident of the County of Los Angeles, State of California, and was based out of JonesWorks' LA office. They're saying it's clear that JonesWorks required Abel to agree to a New York choice of law because that is more favorable to employers. By Abel's second year, Jones appeared to be deteriorating. Abel began to harbor increasing concerns about Jones's mental stability and ability to manage client and employee relations. At around this time, Jones started making FaceTime calls to Abel and other employees at notably odd hours. Jones' communications frequently tracked through the night and into the next morning, suggesting that she had not been sleeping at all. Jones became noticeably more paranoid and irascible, often accusing Abel and others of plotting against her. It became more challenging to communicate with Jones, settle her nerves, or even track her train of thought. They mentioned the Stephanie Jones Leaks website, saying that Abel had no role in that. They mentioned that Business Insider hit piece against Stephanie Jones. Abel was not responsible for that. Additionally, they allege Jones also pried into her employees' private lives without invitation, such as FaceTiming them to confirm they were actually sick. Or another instance, when an employee had taken a personal day to attend a funeral, that guy received a FaceTime call from Jones during the ceremony because she was suspicious of his whereabouts. In April 2023, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson dropped Jones Works after clashes between Jones and his team. In the following months, Jones was also dropped by Bezos, Sanchez, Lainey Wilson, Chris Hemsworth, Wheels Up, Ocean Spray, and Partake Foods. Bloop. Through it all, Abel remained loyal to Jones, sticking with her through thick and thin despite growing doubts about Jones's ability to function professionally. By 2024, however, Jones had become increasingly embittered and hostile towards Abel. Jones frequently criticized Abel's management, manifested extreme paranoia about Abel's close relationships with clients and partners, and went out of her way to reprimand, demean, and embarrass Abel in front of junior employees she oversaw. Over time, Abel's concern about Jones's obvious downward spiral was heightened by the reality that there was no bottom in sight. In the final months of Abel's tenure, Jones had become even more erratic, clearly not sleeping, calling at all hours of the night in a frenzied state, senselessly pitting her own employees against each other, focusing her energy on catching employees in perceived acts of disloyalty, lowering morale still further, and torching her relationships with remaining Jones Works clients. Savage. Although Jones had always been volatile, she now appeared to be actively unraveling. Abel was frequently on the receiving end of her often bizarre outbursts. Oh God, the psychic of it all. Here we go again. In one instance, Jones announced to Abel's subordinates that she had learned through psychic readings that Abel was an alcoholic and a gambling addict. Even if these statements were true, Jones's public announcement would be at best highly inappropriate. Here, however, the accusations are not remotely true! Exclamation mark. They have literally no basis in reality, and the employees to whom Jones made her pronouncement were well aware of that. While Jones presumably intended to undermine Abel's credibility, she had actually significantly undermined her own and raised alarm about whether Jones was in the midst of a mental breakdown. This is one of the best things that I have read in weeks. On a different occasion, Jones announced again, per her psychic, that Abel would soon be pregnant with twins, humiliating and infuriating Abel, who Jones knew had struggled with fertility issues. Abel was also disgusted by Jones's pattern and practice of creating fake social media accounts to troll former employees and journalists she deemed hostile, including Puck's Matt Baldoni. Jones was obsessed with Baldoni in particular. Abel also witnessed Jones working with journalists to plant and contribute to negative stories about former Jones Works clients who had fired Jones Works Jones. When Abel requested that Jones Works offer its Los Angeles employees a modest 2% cost of living raise, Jones, who spent obscene amounts of Jones Works money on lunches, champagne, and manicures, told her that if that were to happen, it would have to come from Abel's paycheck. Already pushed to the brink, Abel finally had enough when Jones demanded she corroborate falsified accusations about a senior Jones Works employee in an effort to drive him out. When Abel refused to go along with it, Jones responded with mockery, calling her a 12-year-old drama queen. On or about July 10th, 2024, Abel notified Jones of her departure from Jones Works. Abel later confirmed her decision on July 26 and communicated her intention to start her own business. Abel offered a 6-week transition period, which Jones Works accepted. On August 7th, 2024, Abel contacted Jones's chief of staff, Gordon Duren, to coordinate the release of her phone number, as Jones had promised when Abel had first joined Jones Works several years before. Duren agreed. Jones and Jones Works knew that Abel had used the same phone number since high school and used the phone for both personal matters and business. At no point during her tenure did Abel consent to allowing Jones Works to access, review, or monitor the contents of the phone. Jones Works did not have a policy in place giving it the right to do so. In early August 2024, Jones directed Duren to investigate how to gain access to Abel's text messages and call history on her telephone from Jones Works provider, Verizon. Duren was only able to obtain Abel's call and text logs for the prior 6 months. Jones instructed Duren to make sure that Abel could not port her phone number away from the Jones Works plan without Jones Works permission. Naughty. By mid-August 2024, Jones had hatched a plan to seize Abel's phone outright. She sent Duren to California on August 19th, 2024, and set the plan in motion. On August 21st, 2024, 2 days before Abel's last scheduled day of employment, Duren, a security guard, a forensic data technician employed by Edgeworth Security Services, and an attorney with Frankfurt, Kernick, Klein, and Sells confronted Abel at Jones Works Beverly Hills office to terminate her Jones Works employment early. Jones had insisted on a security presence so they could, redacted. Duren later testified that, redacted. During the August 21st meeting, Duren demanded that Abel hand over her phone and provide her passcode. In a ruse to induce Abel's compliance, Duren falsely claimed that Jones Works needed the passcode to facilitate the release of the phone number and reset the phone. Believing Duren's representations and intimidated by the presence of a large security guard, an attorney, and a forensic data technician, Abel complied with the demands. Honey, her mistake again. You should have had a lawyer present. Be like, hey, time out. I could be here all day, but I'm going to get my lawyer over here. ASAP. They continue. Abel did not consent to and was not asked to consent to a search of the iPhone's contents. Abel had no reason to believe Jones Works would attempt to access her personal data, or she would not have turned the device over without making prior arrangements to secure it. Abel sought and received express confirmation from Duren and the Jones Works attorney that her phone number would be released immediately thereafter. After handing her iPhone to the Jones Works attorney, Abel was escorted out of the office by the security guard. Abel went directly to a nearby Verizon store and called Duren with the Verizon representative to coordinate the transfer of her phone number. Duren told Abel that Jones Works had commenced the transfer and would call back. After 4 hours of waiting, Abel left the Verizon store in panic and despair. She never heard from him again. Jones Works never released the phone number. Through their promise to release Abel's number upon her departure, Jones Works had lulled Abel into a false sense of security. Believing she had 2 days remaining, Abel had not taken any steps to remove her personal data and information from the iPhone. By refusing to release Abel's phone number, Jones Works usurped Abel's digital identity and cut off her access to critical accounts protected by two-factor authentication. As a result, Abel lost access to bank accounts, utilities, insurance, and virtually every other sensitive account. In effect, Jones had orchestrated a wholesale theft of Abel's phone number and personal data. Shameful. It took months of endless phone calls and in-person visits for Abel to regain access to her checking and savings accounts, credit cards, investment and retirement accounts, as well as her internet, gas, and electricity accounts. In fact, Abel still, does not have access to her Empower 401k account. She lost 20 years of contacts, including those of her old friends, former clients and colleagues, and extended family. Abel had to reset all her airline loyalty, rideshare, and food delivery accounts. And for each social media account, Abel had to go through an arduous identity verification process. In short, it was a nightmare. By contrast, Jones gained unrestricted access to everything stored on Abel's phone, her text messages, emails, and personal photos. Jones could read her communications with her fiancé, parents, friends, everyone. To ensure she would retain Abel's data under any eventuality, redacted. The next day, using her new phone number, Abel begged Duran and Jones to relent. After usurping control of Abel's private communications, Jones began exploiting them to harm Abel further. Specifically, Jones scoured Abel's text messages to find instances where Abel had privately been critical of or gossiped about any former Jones Works colleagues and shared them with those individuals and others. As a result, Abel saw long-term professional and personal relationships fracture. Jones Works senior executives were positively gleeful as they watched Abel's closest colleagues turn against her. Among the communications reviewed, discussed, and disseminated by Jones and her cohorts were highly intimate messages between Abel and her friends about their S to the E to the X lives. Redacted. These messages, which should have been in her exclusive possession, were instead widely distributed by Jones to her team, to Lively, to the press, and to untold others. Also stolen by Jones were Abel's communications with her long-term partner and fiancé, as well as her parents. These include discussions about Abel's fertility, as well as discussions about her mother's serious health challenges. Some of these messages were produced by Jones Works in this litigation. Not only did Jones steal communications of a personal nature, but she also stole privileged communications about Abel's new business. In sum, Abel was subjected to a boundless and disgraceful invasion of her privacy by Jones and Jones Works. She has been left aghast, humiliated, and terrified. Having torched Abel's privacy and dignity, Jones started boasting internally that Abel's business would not last long. Then they move into the Baldoni of it all. For almost 4 years, Abel largely managed Jones Works' work for Wayfarer Studios and Justin Baldoni out of its Los Angeles office. Over time, Abel developed a close, trusting relationship with Baldoni, Wayfarer's CEO Jamie Heath, and the rest of the Wayfarer team, particularly as their strategic communications needs around It Ends With Us became increasingly complex. At all times during Wayfarer's 4-year engagement with Jones Works, Abel was the point person on the account. It was very clear to Wayfarer, and Jones largely did not hide, that Jones considered them to be a lower prestige client and devoted her attention to clients such as Jeff Bezos and Tom Brady. But Jones Works was in utter turmoil by July 2024. Jones was desperate to keep her remaining clients. At the time, Wayfarer and Baldoni were in the midst of a massive PR crisis. Wayfarer and Baldoni asked Abel to recommend a crisis management specialist. After consulting with Jones, who had no viable ideas, Abel recommended 3 firms to help navigate these choppy waters, one of which was Melissa Nathan's The Agency Group PR LLC. Even though Abel felt strongly that Nathan was the right choice, she knew that Jones would be unhappy with the recommendation. Jones viewed Nathan as a competitor and had a history of bad-mouthing her to anyone who would listen, including to Nathan's own clients. Out of sensitivity to these considerations, Abel advised the Wayfarer team to remain open to other possible options and to decide after meeting Nathan themselves. Abel feared backlash from Jones, but felt strongly that Nathan was the best option. When Jones learned that Wayfarer was considering retaining Nathan, she was furious and immediately lashed out at Abel. Wayfarer acknowledged Jones's position, but told her that Wayfarer would make its own decision after meeting Nathan. And this is when Stephanie Jones decided to start caring about Wayfarer. However, she also chose to take a lengthy vacation in Europe during the It Ends With Us saga when it was first imploding. Abel also says it is not true that Jones was kept in the dark about things. Jones was copied on virtually all communications during this period. This is brilliant. Had there been a smear campaign, as was later alleged by her and the Lively parties, Jones would undoubtedly have known about it in real time. Boom. They mentioned the agreement between Ku Klux Khaleesi and Baldoni to not disparage each other in the media until Stephanie Jones planted a negative story in the Daily Mail. This blatant disregard of Wayfarer's strategy, who did not want that, sparked a chain of unfortunate developments. When Wayfarer's leadership found out about the Daily Mail article, they were livid, as was Sony, the film's distributor. Jones panicked about being blamed, refused to be sidelined, insisting that she needed to contact Sony's and Lively's PR team to clarify that she had not planted any negative stories about Lively. Heath told her not to do that, to which Jones responded that she could do whatever she wants to clear her name, and that Wayfarer could not stop her from making calls. Jones then emailed Sony saying that the blame all lied on her team. In her attempt to save face, Jones ruptured her relationship with Wayfarer and Baldoni. Although Jones ultimately agreed to stand down, Wayfarer and Baldoni expressed they had lost all trust in her. As September drew near, Wayfarer and Baldoni, with the assistance of Abel and Nathan, continued their tireless efforts to promote the film, put out fires, and see the project through to the finish line. In contrast with Abel, who was loyal, trusted, and even-tempered while working around the clock through the crisis, Jones was a walking disaster whose self-absorption, disloyalty, and insubordination had become a significant headache. Rather than accept the end of the Wayfarer relationship with professionalism and decorum, Jones started threatening to sue. Jones stewed in resentment and indignity, unable to bear the loss of another Jones Works client. She set out to take revenge on Abel, Wayfarer, Baldoni, and Nathan. That's when Jones disclosed Abel's private communications to Sloan on or about August 21st, 2024. And Jones took it a step further, attempted to contact Lively through a mutual connection. Redacted. A few days later, Jones again reached out to Redacted, then connected Jones and Lively directly. In advance of the call, Redacted, reeling from a storm of negative publicity, Lively instructed Redacted. Lively and Jones spoke by phone approximately a week later. Redacted. A few days later, Lively followed up with Redacted. However, it is now well known that Jones transmitted the contents of Abel's iPhone to Lively, who in turn disseminated them more widely, including to the New York Times. The content of Abel's communications do not support the existence of an untraceable smear campaign. In turning over these materials to Lively, Jones knew full well they would be used. The Lively parties likely anticipated or were told directly that the New York Times would not traffic in stolen communications under these circumstances and needed the color of law. Then we get to the Van Zandt subpoena, in which Van Zandt and Manat, the law firm, implausibly claim not to be privy to the identities of its own contractual counterparties or its own employees, contractors, agents, or representatives. The same day the Van Zandt lawsuit was filed, Jones warned a departing employee not to work for Abel because her business wouldn't be around much longer. Ha ha ha! Once the lawsuit was filed, that's how the Lively parties issued their subpoena to legally be in possession of all the materials they most likely already had. Abel is informed and believes, and based thereon alleges, that the sham lawsuit was contrived by the Lively parties and Jones, acting in concert to facilitate and cover up Jones's release of the data extracted from Abel's phone and personal accounts under the guise of legal process. As a result of Jones's malicious scheme, Abel's life has been turned upside down. Her career and reputation have been destroyed. Her private information leaked. The backlash against Wayfarer and Baldoni has been equally devastating. As a result of Jones and Jones' work's torturous conduct, Abel has suffered enormous harm. All of this harm has accrued in the state of California, where Abel lives and works. Therefore, Jen Abel is seeking all of these causes of actions. Violations of California Penal Code 502. Knowingly accessing and without permission obtaining, altering, disseminating, or otherwise using all of Abel's information on her phone. Second cause of action, conversion. This has to do with retaining Abel's phone number, which Abel was told that she would be able to, and the number was illegally taken away from her by Jones, they allege. The third cause of action, promissory fraud. These are all the false promises made to Stephanie Jones. Oh, if you do this, we'll let that happen. If you do this, don't worry about that. And as a result of all of that, she, Jen Abel, is seeking monetary damages in an amount, according to proof, for pre- and post-judgment interest, for punitive and exemplary damages, according to proof, for attorney's fees and costs incurred by Abel as applicable, and for such other legal and equitable relief as the court deems appropriate. And of course, they are demanding a jury trial. This was signed by Brian Friedman, my lawyer, and also his lawyer, although he did not represent me in Subpoena-gate because I'm not a baller like that. It would have cost me about $75,000 to fight her improper subpoena. Whew, you guys, I need you right now to get a personalized video from me. Book one for the holidays, for a birthday, whatever the occasion. I've got you covered. I love making personalized videos. I've got thousands of glowing reviews. Get one from me right now at cameo.com/P to the E to the R to the E to the Z to the H to the I to the L to the T to the O to the N. Cameo.com/my name. Check out my new merch. I have some inspired by the saga. All of my merch is available at buypopstuff.com. That's buypopstuff.com. Also, if you enjoy my podcast, you will love our Patreon. We are super active on the message board, and you will get an exclusive episode a week. Sign up right now at patreon.com/P to the E to the R to the E to the Z to the H to the I to the L to the T to the O to the N. Patreon.com/my name. Holy frack, this has been an insanely long video. If you watched all the way through, my children and mother, thank you. I worship you. You are the 1% of the 1%. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Remember, I go live on the YT every single day. This week, I'm going to be experimenting with a 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific live stream time. I might stick to it if it works and you like it. And you 1% of the 1%, hit that like button, share this video. And if you made it through the very end, this moment right now, say 1% in the comments section. Thoughts on everything? The big 3 updates. So much to discuss. Let's get into it all in the comments section. And remember, say 1%. Mwah, mwah. See you there.